special Dhamma talk today.
Venerable Bhante Sankhicha, Venerable Janananda, Venerable Sarananda Hamguru, and Venerable members of the Mahasangha, dear friends in Dhamma, this evening you are here to celebrate Vesak. Vesak means a name of a month, and it's called Vaishakha in Indian calendar, and Visakha in Thai calendar. It's the name of a month. In this month we have a full moon day. That full moon day is very, very special to all of us. On that full moon day, the Prince Siddhartha was born, and on that full moon day, not the same full moon day, but 35 years after, when the full moon day came, he became enlightened, and 45 years after teaching about awakening, teaching about eradicating suffering, he passed away into Parinirvana, and he is no more with us. So Bhante Sankhicha briefly mentioned about what we are doing today, the significance of it, and also the situation in Sri Lanka briefly. And my purpose now is to remind you of the great endeavor the Buddha took before his awakening. He was this young prince growing up with a father who cared for him very much. That his father didn't want his son to see any aged person, did not want any grey-haired person around in the palace. His father didn't want any sick person around. His father had goals. He wanted his son to become the leader to the world, the universal monarch. He had this dream. But growing up this way, the prince, Siddhartha, had different intentions. He was feeling this voice in his mind that he is here for a different purpose. When he matured with age, he was not seeing the world as an ordinary person. The way he saw the world was so different. To him, he himself was a riddle. The riddle he was the problem he had. Who he is, why he is there, what answers can he find for his own aging, his own future birth and death. These were the problems he had. And he wanted to find a way to escape the cycle of suffering and exist the existence, as we can say, to quit the cycle, to quit being entangled in the cycle. So with that purpose, although he got married and a son was born, he still wanted to leave and find answers to his questions. On the day his son was born, he took the decision to leave, because he knew had he stayed in the palace, he won't be able to succeed with his mission. So people say it's a radical decision. It's not. People those days, when they wanted to renounce the world, they would leave their children, they would leave any belonging they had, and they make a decision to never return to the household life. So he made that strong decision to leave and never return, not come back to the luxury lifestyle. When he left, he shaved off his hair, put on the robes just like these ones, the rugged robes, and he had his bowl, and then he started begging for food and became a mendicant. He also wanted to go to the very, very extreme of self-mortification, giving pains to this body, and he wanted to be the topmost person who went to the far extreme of giving suffering to this body, because he believed that doing that kind of self-mortification practice would help him to end suffering and to find answers to the questions that were bothering him. He mentions in Mahasacchaka Sutta in Majjhima Nikaya that he went to the extreme of cutting off food. When he touched his skin, he touched the bones because the skin already shrunk. When someone looked at his eyes, it was like a deep well. You see water in the bottom of the well, and his eye sockets were shrunk into the holes. So he was not well. He knew that had he gone any further, this would be destructive. And he realized that this is the farthest any person can practice self-mortification in this life. And then a thought occurred to him. A childhood memory lingered in his mind. He decided to listen to it. This was a victorious decision. A childhood thought that when he was younger than 5, he was a small boy. He was out in the paddy field. His father was doing a plowing ceremony, and this young boy had this impulse to meditate. As soon as he closed his eyes, sitting cross-legged, he could levitate with the lightness that arose from the pleasure born of seclusion. And he had a deep meditative experience. This never left him. So this experience came to him when he had gone to the farthest extreme of doing self-mortification, giving pains to this body. So he thought, there is such pleasure in it. Now I have endured so much pain. And he also had so much fear now that if he go in that direction of enjoying pleasures, it can also be destructive and misleading. But then some voice of wisdom told him that this is no ordinary pleasure. This pleasure is born of seclusion, not from sensory experiences, not from sensual indulgence. In ordinary life, there is pleasure from sensual indulgence. But this pleasure he felt is a pleasure of just being oneself, being just like finding his own light. And he thought, let me try that. Maybe that is the path to awakening. When he took that decision, it was like someone, who quits smoking. They realize that they have come to the destructive level of smoking, and then the voice in their head tells that this is the time to stop. So he stopped. He slowly started taking some food, started, preparing his body for that kind of meditation. Without a strong body, he realized he won't be able to enjoy such bliss that arises from meditation. So he decided to go in that direction, which he later says is the middle path. In the middle path, he gradually succeeded awakening deep jhanic experiences, deep meditative absorptions, and when he enjoyed those, he knew that there he would find the answer. But the nature of our mind is to get attached to anything. Any blissful experience, you get attached to it. And then he wanted to cut that off. So he was letting go of one experience after the other. When he had a deep jhanic experience, he would let go of that and feel the disadvantages, dangers of it, and go further into a different, deeper experience of meditation. He learned two distinct meditative absorptions, experiencing nothingness in his mind and experiencing neither perception nor non-perception. These are deeper meditative experiences that you hear in your Dhamma talks, in your daily listenings of Dhamma. Nothingness is a state of mind that you let go of focusing on anything whatsoever and focus on nothing. It's just nothingness become the absorption of your mind. And then you take it as a sign, as a perception, and then you want to go further by neither, focusing on neither perception nor non-perception. Just take these as mere words, and when you go to such states, your mind is experiencing very subtle states. People have experienced that before. He had two teachers who brought him, who reminded him of those states, that he himself has done those in his previous lives. So he then looked at that stage like, is this also conducive to future birth? What happened to people who practiced these stages before? Then he realized those people who practiced these before are now born in, such realms. The mind is set in those places. So he decided maybe he should also see the impermanence of these perceptions. When he started analyzing with his insight, with his vipassana knowledge, that anything that arises pass away, he was able to quit being attached to that state and renounce and also let go of being born, the concept of being born again and again. And he saw the stop there, the period there, that there will be no more future birth if he does not cling to that final stage. If his mind, if his consciousness has nothing to cling onto, his consciousness would cease to exist. Just like a lamp, when it's not, the light of the lamp, when it's not supported by fuel or the wick or any oxygen, it ceases to exist. Just like that, his mind experienced the cessation, and he named it as Nirodha. And later on, he analyzed the experience and started seeing the world as a relative, like one thing causes another thing to arise. And he started analyzing his own experience, and depending on one thing, he realized another thing arises. Because there is this thing, another will arise. With this understanding, he started naming the links, starting from ignorance. People ignore the truth. People do not see this. People are entangled in seeking pleasures, and they are unfulfilled still in their later ages, and they die, and they want to continue seeking pleasures even after birth, after death. So when he realized ignorance is the reason behind people's wandering in the sansaric journey, he found that one link, and then he realized mental formations are caused by this ignorance. And he thought these are called sankharas, mental formations. Because of mental formations, consciousness has a way to exist. Because of consciousness, you become conscious on things and start naming, and you start taking forms as they are, and there is a way for your mind to somehow survive, consciousness to survive in this universe. And then your sixth sense doors depend on all the previous links. The sixth sense doors, as long as the sixth sense doors exist, you start to have contacts with the outer world. Because of contacts, you make decisions about pleasureful things, painful stuff, and neither painful nor pleasureful ones. When you make decisions that way, there is a doer in it, there is a person in it. And the Buddha saw that a person has to dissolve here. This is an illusory self-making. When the person dissolved, there's no doer in it. It's like when you find the car and you separate the steering wheel, the wheels and different parts of it, the seats, when they are separated, you no longer can say that that is a car. So when you have, with your own wisdom, has seen this nature, you don't start naming the stuff as your own. You see them as stuff out there. When there is no contact, there is no way craving can arise from outer experiences. When craving is no more, clinging stops. When clinging stops, his answer to the question of how birth arises was found. That there is no more future birth. That means there is no grief, there is no longing, there is no aging, there is no sickness. Answers to all those questions have been found right there. So these links are called dependent co-arising links. They arise dependent on others. So Buddha's primary teaching was there named as Paticca Samuppada, dependent co-arising teaching, and combined with that, he saw that people need to see that there is suffering. This is the truth that people ignore, and there is also the cause of suffering, and there is a way out, the cessation of suffering, and a path towards cessation of suffering. These he named as four noble truths. Truths that lead to noble states of your being. So he taught the Eightfold Path, starting from mindfulness, right thoughts, right actions, right speech, right concentration, right mindfulness, and deeper experiences of meditation, and also a lifestyle that supports that kind of meditation. And you see, when you come to a temple, you see monks. You don't see nuns here, but nuns also were admitted to his order. And upasakas and upasikas like you, the lay female devotees and male devotees, joined his order, and people started taking interest in his teachings, and the message of the Buddha started spreading across the world. And since then until now, 2668 years has passed after his birth, and the message is still spreading. And we as monks living in Great Lakes Buddhist Vihara here in Detroit, we also listen to this set of words of the Buddha. Charata bhikkhave charikam, bahujana hitaya bahujana sukhaya, attaya hitaya sukhaya deva manusana. Ma ekena dvi agamitta, deseta bhikkhave dhammam adi kalyanam majje kalyanam pariyosana kalyanam, sattham sabhyanjanam kevala paripurna. The message there is that monks, do not stay in one place, travel from place to place and share what you have understood. Teach people about overcoming this ignorance and eradicating their suffering, and that there is this blissful way of existing, enjoying the highest pleasures that a man can ever experience in the world. So listening to that advice of the Buddha, we monks are here, far away from Sri Lanka, from our mother country. Bhante Sankhicha mentioned the situation there. So our hearts trembled in fear when we experienced the tragic Easter bombing. I will not go into details of it. You are aware of the situation there. And when all that happens, we get reminded of the danger of dwelling in the samsara, dwelling in the cycle of birth and death. And we ourselves then start seeking refuge in the Buddha, refuge in his teachings, and refuge in the monks. With the blessings of having them in the world, we are secured. We have a way out. And no one is going to stop you when you start taking that direction. When someone at his time, in the Buddha's time, asked the Buddha, like, you look so different, your complexion looks so serene, are you a god? The Buddha said no. Are you a superhuman being? He said no. Then who are you? This Brahmin asked. The Buddha said, I am the Buddha. I am like a lotus sprung out of mud, but I stay unsmeared with mud. I do not go back to the mud. The mud is this world. The pleasures and pains that a worldly person experiences in the mud, and he would not go back to those. He is now awakened and he no longer wishes to participate in that world. So that is the light of wisdom. The Buddha, that is his light that radiated to the world, to the universe. Heavenly beings and humans alike came and bowed at his feet, learned the teachings, and now because of that light we are also learning some wisdom. And you see that these lanterns are here. We symbolize by lighting these lanterns that we dispel the darkness of ignorance. And you yourself need to be that light, as Bhante mentioned earlier. You need to be the light, and you need to start seeing good qualities within you, good qualities in others. In Sinhala they say, Pahanin pahan siya ganak avilu ada, epahan silehi alu adunawa dilena leda, lohaan satun guna pala keremin nibanda, supasan gunin vajibeti sudano pabanda. Which means when you light a lamp with your own light, your light won't decrease. Your light will shine brighter. Just like that. See the good qualities of people around you. That way you start shining more and more. And that is how good people live in the society. These words are influenced by the Buddhist culture, Buddhist literature, Buddhist teachings, and they are ingrained in the Sinhala culture, in the Buddhist Sri Lankan culture, and therefore Vesak has become a significant time for us. Since your childhood until now, when Vesak season comes, you want to practice generosity, You share food, you light a lamp at home, you celebrate the birth of the greatest human being that you ever knew of in your life. May his message prevail in the world.